I saw a ceiling I was familiar with. This is definitely a fucking Ava reference. Though I was groggy from sleep, I did notice that I was in my futon, like I was every morning. I looked at my clock, and despite having turned in so late last night, I had awoken at precisely the same moment as I always did. I'm so low on sleep, but I guess you really can get up at the same time every day. Bro, that's me right now. You can probably hear it in my voice. The secrets of the human body never cease to amaze me. If I went back to sleep like this, I would definitely not be waking up again. I spurred myself on and slipped out of my futon. Mom asked me about last night at breakfast. Apparently we too had gotten the call asking if we knew where Rika-chan and Satoko were, and Mom vaguely understood that something serious was happening.
じゃあ、昨夜はお友達とみんなで夜遅くまで探してたの
？3時くらいまでかな。うん。
結局見つかったの？そのリカちゃんとサトコちゃんは。
I warily bit into my toast. It really didn't have any taste. Just then, we heard the chime go ding dong. I looked up at the clock and saw that it was about 5 minutes past my regular meeting time with Rena. It was her at the door.
おはよう。少しは眠れたかな？
何時間寝れたんだろうな。多分、鶏の足でも数えられるくらいだと思う。
Rena seemed pretty sleep deprived as well. There was something missing from her usual spirit.
学校、行くか？
うん。その方がね、きっといいと思うの。
She said, smiling, albeit stiffly. Rena was probably worrying her heart out about those two as well. Even so, she wanted to go to school.
今日をお休みしたら、きっと圭一くんは病んで寝込んじゃうと思う。私、そんなの嫌だから。だから、一緒に学校に行こ
う。わかった。ちょっと待っててくれ。すぐ支度するから。
I was just a little bit happy about Rena mustering that much consideration for me. We went to the place where we'd usually meet up with Mion, but she was nowhere to be found. We were a little bit late today, so we thought she'd be waiting for us.
みーちゃん、さすがに今日は起きられないかもね。
あ、そうか。あいつにとっては昨日だけじゃないんだよな。一昨日の晩も村長さんを探して徹夜してるんだよな。
We waited for a bit. Time passed until it got to the point where it was okay for us to go on alone, and we exchanged glances.
どうする？もう少し待つか？
At that point, my brain, which had finally been woken up by the morning air, recalled the ominous words Oishi-san had left me with last night. The leaders of the three families were disappearing one after the other. And next, it might be the Sonozaki's leader. Could Mion have... No, that couldn't be.
行こう。今日は寝かせておいてあげようよ。
Rena gave me a pat on the back.
ミオン、本当にいるよな。
何か言ったかな？
あ、いや、独り言。行こうぜ。
The two of us headed to school by ourselves. On the way, we saw a bunch of our classmates accompanied by their parents. It even looked like some of them were being taken to school by car. Surprisingly, the principal was also standing watch at the school gate. I'd never seen that before.
おはようございます。
おはようございます。
The principal was bowing to our classmates' guardians. The wooden sword leaning next to him was a little ominous.
前原くん、おはよう。龍宮くん、おはよ
おはようございます。
先生から大切なお話があるから、すぐに教室に入るように。いいかね？
Ren and I said nothing. The madness that only existed at night had finally crawled out into the sunlight. That's what it felt like. Imagine she just lets him sleep.
皆さん、おはようございます。
The hushed conversation that had been spreading for a while now all disappeared like an illusion the moment our teacher walked in the door. Silence dominated the classroom. The principal came in with our teacher as well. This was clearly not a normal morning.
まず、校長先生から大切なお話があります。校長先生、どうぞ。
The principal cleared his throat and approached the dais.
もう知っている生徒もおるだろ
The classroom was dead silent. Everyone was staring at Rika-chan and Satoko's empty seats. The principal briefly and simply declared that Rika-chan and Satoko had gone missing. There wasn't a single person in the classroom who didn't already know. There seemed to be many, however, who couldn't accept it as the truth. It had been confirmed to them now by the principal's words. There were sobs throughout the classroom, and I heard a kid crying. They steadily spread throughout the whole classroom. The big-hearted principal wasn't able to keep his cool either.
はい、皆さん注目注目。今日から当分の間、登下校は保護者の方と一緒に行います。保護者の方の都合がつきにくい生徒は、集団での登下校とします。プリントを作りましたので、よく読み、保護者の方にも必ず見せてください。いいですね。
The teacher's voice was a little abrasive. Not even she could conceal the strain she felt from this unprecedented, abnormal situation. They should have just canceled school today, for real. However, Irena told me that the school was also like a nursery for the students whose parents both worked, so some of them wouldn't want school to be canceled.
では、授業を始めます。委員長はお休みですね。では日直、号令起立。
The feeling of wanting to maintain an everyday atmosphere, even if only in school, precisely because our lives have been messed up, was something that I agreed with at this point. As for the teacher, who always had her lunch in the staff lounge, she ate in the classroom today. I had to laugh at her curry bento, which was just a rumor until now, but there was nobody to laugh with me. Elena brought her chair and lunch over to my seat. Today, it was only the two of us. The fact that we didn't need to drag any other desks over was sad.
眠いね。
ああ、でも、もうそんなに気にならなくなったよ。むしろ今寝れるくらいのずぶとい神経が羨ましい。
そうかもね。
I was sleepy this morning, but my drowsiness had dissipated after coming to school and constantly feeling the incredible tension. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever been in this situation. This happens to me quite often. Whenever I'm like sleep deprived, either due to work or like personal projects or whatever. But there'll be times where I'll be like so fucking tired because I got like 3 or 4 hours of sleep. And then I'll be fully awake once I'm, let's say, out with friends or out doing something. For some reason. But this only lasts for a few hours. And then the second that time is up, I'm immediately drowsy again and like on the verge of collapse. But this is assuming I've been up for like a total of like 28 or 30 hours basically. Rena's bento box didn't have its usual luster. That was to be expected. Rena was up for a long time last night too. She wouldn't have had time to make her lunch beforehand. Since it's not like she would have gotten up early this
遠慮
morning.
なくつっつけよ。今日は素直に俺の弁当の方が立派なのを認めろ。
じゃあ、遠慮なくいただくね。わあ、しそチーズのちくわ巻きなんて面白いな。
レナのだって、今日のはレトルトだろうけど、なかなかうまいぞ。
I realized the two of us were desperately trying to brighten the afternoon mood to its usual level as much as we could. I looked around the classroom, and it seemed like we were the only ones trying to do so, surrounded as we were by gloominess.
こうして二人だけでお弁当をつつき合ってると、 なんだかそのなんだかだよね。
Now's not the time to flirt, Rena. Two children are missing, and one of our friends has possibly been kidnapped. Our laughter grew quieter. I was the first one to mess
ご
up.
めん。悪かった。
いいよ、仕方ないよ。
Our chopsticks both stopped moving. We couldn't keep it up anymore.
リカちゃんとサトコ、どこに行ったんだろうな。
Those words might have sounded too miserable. Everyone was thinking it, using roundabout ways to address the topic, but I came right out and said it. I heard Rena catch her breath.
昨日ね、ケイチくんがいなくなってる間にいろいろと話を聞いてたから、レナの
昨べはすまなかった。頼む。
At that time, since they had arrived for support, Rena was helping the Ladies' Society cook the miso soup we'd had. They reported all of the information the villagers had gathered, and Rena said she overheard it.
でも、結局何もわからなかったんだろ。学校が終わってから家に帰って、二人で自転車に乗ってどこかへ行ったらしいということ以外は、全く。
Miona told me yesterday. We had no clues.
警察の人も家に帰ってからすぐに自転車で遊びに行ったんだろうって言ってる。家に帰ってからすぐに自転車で遊びに行くところといったら町かもしれないでしょ。だから沖宮の町でいなくなったんじゃないかって結論になってるみたい。警察は明るくなってから捜査範囲を沖宮にも広げるって言ってた。
In town, it makes sense why we couldn't find them even though we searched all of Hinamizawa then. Still, something didn't fit. I had no basis for thinking that, just a gut feeling. I revealed something to Rika-chan that was likely very important to that was likely very important to her that day. Then, Rika-chan had told me to leave it to her. And then, what did she say? She'll take care of it. Right, if she didn't work hard, then something bad might happen to the dog too, I think. Oh, right, that one. With all the talk of dogs and cats, I still didn't have the faintest idea what she really meant, but it might have been Rika-chan's way of saying it was a race against time. Damn it. I'd selfishly pushed my anxiety on Rika-chan and tried to run away. When I thought about it, I shouldn't have run back then. I should have asked her more about the dogs and cats. The more I think back on it, I really screwed up. Anyway, I don't think Rika-chan was in a situation where she would just go off to play somewhere. Of course, I didn't have any evidence or conviction to base that on. Just a hunch.
町なんかに行くわけないと思うんだ。
ケイチ君もそう思う？レナもそう思うよ。リカちゃんもサトコちゃんもひなみ沢でいなくなったに違いないの。
I looked back at Rena, startled. I could hear the conviction in those words. Without replying to my gaze, she took her bento box and went to the hallway.
お弁当箱を洗ってくるね。
She timed that in a way that broke off the conversation. Suddenly, I got the feeling that the next thing she had to say would be hard to say aloud in the classroom. I hurriedly grabbed my bento box and followed her. Rena didn't go to the kitchenettes, but rather to the water fountains out back where students seldom went. The water flowed down onto our bento boxes. During that time, Rena didn't say a word. Then, after making sure there were no other students around, she finally opened her mouth to speak.
リカちゃんとサトコちゃんが町に遊びに行っていなくなったなんて、なんだか腑に落ちなくて、私なりにいろいろ聞いたり調べたりしたの。
聞いた？何を？
婦人会のおばさんたちにいろいろ。昨日のお味噌汁、お豆腐がいっぱい入ってたでしょ？富田豆腐店のおばあちゃんも来てたの。
The Tomita Tofu Shop. Tofu Shop. Oh, I remember. That was one of the stores on the road leading to the hospital. Those huge lumps of tofu dancing on the bathtub-like cistern. Sorry, on the bathtub-like cisterns always looked nice and refreshing.
おばあちゃんね、昨日学校の帰り道にさとこちゃんがお店に寄ってお豆腐を買っていったのを覚えてたの。
豆腐？学校の帰り道にだろ？それが何か手がかりになるのか？
いいから聞いて。
I mean, she didn't go to town, Keiji.
リカちゃんの家に行った時のこと覚えてるかな？
Irena stepped away from the sinks and spread her arms wide to recreate the space of Rika-chan's room.
ガス台にお鍋がかけてあって、その中にお味噌汁が入ってたの。
Right.
中にはお豆腐が多分一丁の半分くらい入ってたと思う。残りの半分は冷蔵庫の中にあったの。冷ややっこにするつもりだったんだね。お皿に開けてラップがかけてあった。
As Irena explained, she walked around as if she were really going through Rika-chan's room.
でもレナ、それが何だって言うんだ？
ケイチくん、お味噌汁のお豆腐って本当に最後の最後に入れるんだよ。つまりお料理してたリカちゃんか、もしくはさとこちゃんはお夕飯の時間の直前まであそこに立って料理をしていたことになるの。
夕食の時間の直前まで？
Wasn't everyone saying that their bikes weren't around, so they must have gone somewhere to play by themselves? Yeah. It's almost like if people are trying to cover this up.
三角コーナーのゴミを見たらすごく不吉祥だった。食事やお弁当はほとんどリカちゃんが作ってるんだけど、だからその晩はさとこちゃんがお料理したんだね。
それってつまりさとこに関しては遊びに行かず夕食の準備をしてたってことなのか？
うん。それで私炊飯釜も見てみたの。炊飯釜には2人分のご飯が炊けていた。
ってことは2人分の夕飯は作ったけど2人とも夕飯は食べなかった、そういうことか？
Irena nodded. Oh, no.
それで次に冷蔵庫の中も見てみたの。そうしたら残り半分のお豆腐で作った冷ややっこがあったの。それだけじゃない。お夕飯用に作ったおかずも何皿かあって、それらにはみんなラップがされていた。
Usually plastic wrap things so that you can have leftovers for the next day. My mom does this all the time too, using them in breakfast or lunch.
そう。ラップって食べ残しとかを取っておくためにするものだよね。冷蔵庫に入れたということは、少なくともその晩のうちには食べないつもりだったということ。
そういうことになるのか？
ケイチくん、もっとよく考えて。お夕飯を全く手つけずでラップしてあったんだよ。
She's like, Keiichi, use your fucking brain. You dumbass. Oh my god. It's like, think, Keiichi. Dinner was made, but no one ate dinner. What does that tell us?
どういうことだと思う？
What do you think that means? That's so fucking cool.
じゃあ夕食を食べる必要がなくなったわけだ。外食とか出前とかで。
それも突然にね。前もって決まっていたらお料理なんかしない。
Yeah.
そしてお夕食は2人分用意されていた。
Oh my god.
つまりさとこちゃんは2人で食事ができると本当に直前までそう思って料理をしていたということなの。
じゃあ2人で遊びに行っていなくなったというのは間違いじゃないか。
そう。つまり いなくなったのはお夕飯ができて夕食に至るまでの本当にわずかな時間。多分7時頃くらい。
そんな時間に食事もせずに二人はどこへ行ったんだ？
当然そこに行き着くよね。圭一くん覚えてるかな？折りたたみ机が置いてあって、その上にお醤油や箸立てなんかが置いてあったのを。
There might have been something like that. I didn't remember.
お醤油の小瓶ね。空っぽだったの。もう一滴も入ってなかった。これじゃあ冷ややっこは美味しくないよね。だから私、流しの下にある醤油の大瓶を探してみたの。
よくそんなところにあるって知ってるな。
私もリカちゃんの家に行って折々したことあったから。
Lena cleared her throat, her face returning to a serious expression.
でね、流しの下を開けてみたら、醤油の大瓶が瓶ごとなかったの。
醤油の大瓶がないとどういう意味になるんだ？
ここから先は全部レナの想像だからね。だから最後まで口を挟まずに聞いていてね。
Last night, Satoko was making dinner like normal. Rika-chan usually watched TV until the food was ready, so she was probably laying down watching a variety show or something. Satoko put the tofu in the miso soup, and right when dinner was about to be ready, she noticed that they were out of soy sauce. So Rika-chan, who had nothing to do, brought the big bottle of soy sauce to a neighbor's house to borrow theirs.
俺、ご近所付き合いってよくわからないんだが、醤油なんかって分けてもらえるものなのか？
Like, I get Keiichi's an idiot, right? But we've seen like the residents of Hinamizawa do more for each other. So yes, it's very likely that they would give her soy sauce. Like, you don't I don't know why he's worrying about this.
うん。ひなみ沢ではそんなに珍しいことじゃないよ。
So Rika-chan rode her bike out to get some soy sauce. No matter how long Satoko-chan waited, though, Rika-chan didn't come back. So then Satoko-chan called up the house where Rika-chan was going. Would Rika happen to be imposing on you? Something like that. Then the other person must have replied with something like
う
this.
ちに食事の用意があるから、さとこちゃんもいらっしゃい。リカちゃんはもう食べてるよって。
Oh my god.
きっとそんな感じで呼び出したんだと思う。
Satoko called Rika a few names in private and wrapped up the dinner she had made for them. She put it in the fridge so she could use it for breakfast and lunch the next day. Then Satoko got on her bike too and headed for the house where Rika was.
でもすでにこの時点でおかしいの。食事ってね、突然やってきた人に振る舞えるほど多めに作るものじゃないんだよ。
Right. A veteran housewife would never normally make so much food that she could feed 2 extra people.
たまたま偶然作りすぎたことだって考えられるだろう。
それでも絶対に考えられない。
We got angry at Anna again. Rena flatly denied me.
だってリカちゃんはさとこちゃんが頑張って作ったお夕飯がもうできてることを知ってるんだよ。どんなにお夕飯を勧められたってさとこちゃんのお夕飯を無駄にするようなことをするわけがない。
Right. This was all only circumstantial evidence in Rena's guesswork. Even so, it was all extremely convincing. It was the only ray of hope we had to topple the situation bereft of clues.
じゃあレナ、リカちゃんはどこへ醤油をもらいに行ったんだ？
That was the heart of it. It would have to be somewhere she'd be comfortable with asking for soy sauce. And somewhere Satoko wouldn't think it suspicious that she'd been invited for dinner. So, who was it? Was it Mion's house? Did she get invited to Mion's house?
レナの推理はここまで。
あ
あくまでも想像だからね。警察の人とかには内緒にしておいてね。
隠すことはないんじゃないか。仮に半分しか会ってないとしても、きっとヒントにはなると思うぞ。
ケイチ君、これってひなみ沢の人を疑うって意味だよ。確信もないのに村の人を疑えない。
I saw a few girls coming over to rinse out their bento boxes. Rena cut the conversation short there and returned to the classroom. I stayed alone, my body bathed in the lively voices of the cicadas. Let's think about this. In my own way. Rena had barely any information to go on, and yet she'd reasoned out that much. So there should be something that only I, who knew far more than Rena did, could deduce. Oishi-san said this last night too, but this incident was definitely occurring within Hinamizawa. Rena might have not wanted to believe it, but it's basically a given that the culprit is someone from the village. Right. The trigger for everything was when the four of us trespassed into the forbidden storehouse. Somebody saw us go in there. For the culprits, breaking the taboo was a crime punishable by death. So that night, Tomitake-san and Takano-san were sacrificed. Right? There were two left. Shion and myself. However, before the culprits bore their fangs on Shion and me, they went after the mayor, to whom Shion had confessed her sin. Next, they went for Rika, to whom I'd confessed my sin. Then what about Satoko? Just a stray bullet? By itself, Rika being sacrificed after I told her everything was mortifying. But Satoko, who was sacrificed for no reason, wasn't that all the more regrettable? Everything was my fault. Who would be the next to disappear? Would it be Shion and myself next time? Why? Why weren't the culprits going for Shion and me right away though? Shion and I. If they had enough power to erase the mayor and Rika-chan, then why not just get rid of Shion and I? If they went for us, well, I wouldn't like it, but I could still tolerate it. What I couldn't forgive was them getting rid of those we confessed to. Now that I think of it, yesterday Shion said something alarming. She felt like someone was watching her. So then, was someone watching me as well? Strangely though, I hadn't felt anything like that until now. Even though I'm the root cause of everything, I had never once had that impression. Maybe that was simply because Shion was more cautious than I, and I was just careless. That's another story though. Let's get back on track. Why weren't the culprits going after Shion and I? I felt like that's where the key to this lay. Could it be, was I making a big assumption that I shouldn't have been? I thought and thought but couldn't come up with an answer. The one thing I understood was that I was a concerned party to this case, and that I had a duty to watch over it until everything got resolved. I heard the ring of the bell declaring the end of lunch break, but somebody else disappeared tonight. If nobody else did, then I wanted them to get rid of me tonight for sure. And then put an end to all this. Shion's hysterical voice on the phone last night came back to mind. They planned to murder those close to us first, make us as miserable as possible, and only then would they kill us.
前原君、昼休みは終わりであるぞ。教室に戻りなさい。
At the principal's urging, I returned to the classroom, which was quiet as street night, or as the street night. Quiet as the street at night. Jesus fuck, my reading tonight. As is the case whenever I go to bed late. Anyway, there were a lot of parents picking up their children after school. It was just like a kindergarten. The students whose parents didn't come went home as a group. We left school with everyone else, following the assigned route. Even while leaving, nobody said anything funny. They all looked like exhausted mountaineers silently marching through the mountains. As we went, one left, and then another, And in the end, it was just Rena and I. I was supposed to escort her all the way to her house, but she
本当に
declined.
いいのか？一人じゃ不用心だぞ。
レナを送った後、一人で帰るケイチくんだって同じくらい不用心だよ。まだ明るいんだもの。大丈夫。
そうか。じゃあ気をつけてな。
あれ？あれ、警察の人じゃないかな。
Rena pointed towards my house. There was a car stopped in front of it. Uh-oh. From out that car came Oisan. He must have been waiting for my return to ambush me. Oisan started walking over wearing that annoying grin.
レナはもう行きな。あいつに絡まれると長い。
でも、どうして警察の人がケイチくんに用があるんだろう。
Rena's a good person. Even when I made a fuss over Rika-chan's disappearance, she never asked me why I did. She could have been suspecting me ever since then, and that would have been okay. Even so, she still hadn't asked me anything. She didn't try to pressure me into revealing the truth.
俺は犯人じゃない。
I thought he was gonna follow it up with something else.
そんなの知ってるよ。
でも、事件に何の関わりもないとは言い切れない。
Rena simply listened, smiling like she always did. Even though I had insinuated I was related to the incident, she didn't look at me as though she were looking at something dirty.
今度話すよ。
待ってるね。
じゃあ、早く行きな。
Rena gave me a slight bow and trotted away, leaving me, alone with Oisan, who walked over.
どうもどうも。おかえりなさい、前原さん。
どうも。
ご家族はお留守みたいですね。
Oh no.
いやはや困っていたんですよ。
He came all the way to my house? I could only thank my good fortune that my parents were absent. Since neither of them was around at this hour, they would probably be back late.
親父の仕事の関係で出かけてるんだと思います。
Right, so if you remember in chapter 1, in subchapter 11, which is around the same point that, or well, at this exact same point, our dad gets called out on a business trip, and mom like calls us at night or leaves a note, and it's like, hey, dad and I are gonna be gone. We went to Tokyo. We're gonna be gone for like 2 days. Something along those lines.
帰りは遅いと思いますよ。
そうですか。それは好都合です。親御さんに変な思いをさせずに済みます。
Oisan pushed my back, prompting me to walk. It seemed like he wanted me to get in the car. Oh no.
警察に連行するんですか？
I wasn't the culprit, but I was the cause of everything. It wouldn't be weird if he wanted to investigate me. It kind of gave me a resigned feeling.
いえいえ、立ち話もなんですから、車の中でお話ししようってだけですよ。
He's got AC after all, Keiichi.
さあ、どうぞどうぞ。
He opened the back door and urged me inside. If I got in, I wouldn't have a very easy time getting out. If I said no, however, then this man might really handcuff me and take me away. I couldn't refuse. I could only accept in good grace. The inside of the car had been cooled too much by the air conditioner, and there was a rusty smell coming from the filter, which must have been cleaned only rarely. Oh
あり
no.
ゃ、冷えすぎます？切りましょうか。
He turned off the engine, and it suddenly became quiet, and the voices of the Higurashi with all their cool loneliness snuck inside. It sounded to me like a chorus of voices, lamenting my exorbitant punishment for having harbored such foolish curiosity. For a few moments, while listening to those voices, I myself lamented the days that had been twisted and distorted since that night. Oi-san, as if waiting for me to voluntarily begin talking, lit a cigarette and listened to the Higurashi. The silence became deafening, and I was the one who folded first.
捜査の方はどうなってるんですか？
捜査何のですか？最近はいっぱいありすぎてどれのことやら。
全部です。
いいですよ。本当は報道管制の敷かれた秘密捜査なんですが、あなたには特別に聞かせてあげましょう。じゃあ最初の事件からいきます。
The way he said that was kind of like the way foreigners speak. The way he said show, it was like show, almost. The freak deaths of Tomitake-san and Takano-san on the night of the
こっちは
Watanagashi.
お恥ずかしいかな。さっぱり進展なしです。まずは富武さん、集団で暴行を受けた形跡はあるのですが、自分の喉をかき破るなんて異常な死に方の説明がつかないんです。
Yeah, they definitely made Oishi-san a bit of like an asshole this chapter. Where in chapter 1, he was like, you know, kind of like a friendly cop, right? It's like, I mean, he wanted to get to the bottom of things. He wanted you to work with him, right? He charmed you up, and he wasn't really using any like slimy tactics to get you to talk. He did it like once, but like that's it. Like Keiichi kind of was like, all right, I'll cooperate. And in chapter 2, he's like a major cunt the entire time. Like he kind of forces you and takes advantage of you in certain situations due to like the social stigmas and the social what's it called, conventions of like the Japanese people or of Japanese people, and them having to be like, "Ah, well fuck, he bought me coffee, now I have to listen to it," which is fucking dumb. Anyway,
何らかの薬物中毒を疑っているんですが、検出はされませんでした。
高野さんはどんな感じなんです？
同じくさっぱりです。焼死死体は検視が非常に困難でして、首を絞められた後にガソリンをかけられたんじゃないかと見ています。管轄が岐阜県産でね。
that voice line sounded different.
あちらさん、自分たちの縄張りの事件だからってあんまり協力的じゃないんですよ。
As if it was recorded later.
と、これは関係ない話ですね。
So the police didn't know anything other than the fact that the victims died inexplicably.
ですが、犯行時間はおおむねお祭りが終わった直後だろうと見ています。高野さんの方はちょっとあやふやですが、富武さんとほぼ同じ時刻に殺害され、岐阜の山中に遺棄されたと考えるのが妥当でしょうな。
どうしてわざわざ遠くの山まで死体を運んだんでしょう？富武さんも同じように遠くへ運べばよかったのに。
ありゃ、前原さん、あなたなかなかどうして鋭いですね。もちろん私もそこは注目すべき点だと思っていますよ。他にもいくつか不審点はありますが、まあ現時点でお話しできるのはこのくらいです。
村長さんの方はどうですか？何か手がかりはありましたか？
Having exhausted that topic, I changed subject. Otherwise, he might turn the conversation on me.
失踪された一日の足取りを調べました。手がかりになるようなものは見つかりませんでしたが、一応お話ししましょうか。
The mayor, Kiichiro Kiyoshi. Apparently, he was suffering from severe hemorrhoids.
古い生まれの方って非常にプライドが高いんですよね。それで村長さん、誰にも内緒で鹿骨市内にある大学病院の肛門科に通われていたんです。
Shibone.
失踪当日、村長さんは診察の予約が取ってあったんで、朝一で出かけられました。
Even I knew that big hospitals, like university hospitals, had a really long waiting time. Apparently, people would get in line hours beforehand, even if they had an appointment.
診察が終わったのは午後1時頃です。その後、病院内のレストランで軽食を取られ、雑誌を読みながら時間を潰されました。この辺りのことは、自宅にあったお財布の中のレシートで分かってます。
There was nothing suspicious at all about
その
that.
日は夕方から神社の集会場で会合の予定があったんです。それで余裕を持ってお帰りになるはずだったんですが、途中電車で人身事故がありましてね。どうもそれで足止めを食ってしまったらしく、家に着いたのは会合の時間の直前でした。ご家族が大慌てで神社の集会場に出かけていく村長さんを目撃しています。
会合ってのは何だったんですか？確か、その会合の帰り道に失踪してるんですよね。
会合は御三家と町会の主要役員が集まってのものでした。今年も起こってしまった連続開始事件の対応について協議したものと思われます。
So then, on his way home, the old man who had treated Shion like his own granddaughter, or like his own daughter, he was a dependable person who would encourage Shion whenever she felt pressured by anxiety, and yet, Shion's painful voice struck me right in the heart.
あれ？
どうなさいました？
I was taken aback by how strange my own voice sounded. What was it that just surprised me? Oh, the heavy music again. I squeezed my head with my hands to try to drag back out what I had only realized for a split second. Remember, Keiji, you just realized something. Something important. The night of the Watanagashi. That was when everything started. That night, Takano-san and Tomitake-san died. The next morning, word of the incident had spread throughout Hinamizuwa. They planned to talk about it during the evening meeting. The mayor, however, had an appointment at the hospital, and as planned, he went there without telling his family. He got a checkup at the hospital, grabbed lunch, and then there was an unexpected delay on his train ride back. When he returned, the meeting was already about to start. The mayor changed his clothes, got on his bike, and hurried to the assembly hall at the shrine as fast as he could. From when he heard about the incident on the night of the Watanagashi until he showed up at the assembly hall, everything he was doing that day was done in secret. During that time, nobody found out that he went to the hospital alone, ate alone, and he got on the train alone. That all meant he had absolutely no contact with anyone else. You couldn't have called him on the phone, or you couldn't have called him on the phone. Okay, but what does that mean, Keiji? Why does that matter, Keiji?
ケイちゃん、私、どうしよ
どうした？話せよ。俺たちの間で隠し事はなしだろ？
う。私、君吉のおじいちゃんに打ち明けたんです。
I told him everything. I told old man Kimiyoshi everything.
村長さんに、私、あの晩、最後でに忍び込んだこと、打ち明けたんです。誰かにそれを見られてて、私たちを狙っている人がいるって。
ああ、それで？
君吉のおじいちゃん、怒らなかった。そして、にっこり笑って、しおちゃんがちゃんと反省してるなら、鬼隠しになんかなるものかって、本当に、笑いながら、任せなさいって。
Sweat burst out of my body like bullets. They became one long strand and slid down from my forehead to my nose and fell. So then, what does it mean? Hey, Keiichi. No more playing dumb. When did she tell him? Shion said she learned of the incident from a phone call to her father. From a phone call her father made that morning. The mayor had left the house first thing in the morning for his appointment at the hospital. He didn't tell anybody where he was going. Nobody knew about him going to the university hospital. And furthermore, his train ride back to his house was delayed by an accident. As soon as he got home, he rushed out to the assembly hall. Then, the meeting at the assembly hall began, and continued until it was dark out. Then everyone left. Nobody saw him after the meeting was over. He just disappeared. Which meant...
前原さん、
I don't think we've seen this specific background, though. This is a new, like, in-car shot. So let's quickly look at the where is it? The console background version. God, the scenery is so fucking beautiful in console. Like, it's really, really, really nicely painted. If you look closely at the leaves and the mountainside. Anyway, I don't want to delay this too much.
大丈夫ですか？やっぱり暑いんならクーラー入れますよ。
Another part of me was messing with my thoughts, demanding that I didn't think any further than that. My head was pounding violently, and the fluids packed inside it, all blended together until nothing made sense. It was just about to settle, yet it had been smashed and melted in the blink of an eye, no longer able to retain its shape.
前原さん、もしもし。
Moshimosh.
はい。
Maibara. Daijoubu desu. Oi-san lit yet another cigarette. And there was yet another cigarette butt placed in the ashtray. Was it displaying the passage of time? Had my thoughts been frozen over for that long?
私、知ってる限りのことを話したつもりです。お返しに、今度は前原さんの話を聞かせてもらってもいいですよね。
My mind had become a gigantic oozing mess. My brain felt like it had been totally minced by the blades of a blender, and I couldn't think.
ほらほら、また黙り込む。もし誤解があるようなら先に解いておきたいんですがね。私は別にあなたが犯人だなんて思っちゃいないんです。
Oisan gave his best attempt at an adult
あの
smile.
晩、あなたたち4人が西宮殿に忍び込んだことは知っています。次の日にはもう村の知る人は誰でも知る噂になってましたからね。それ自体は不法侵入として問われるべきことですが、問題はそれじゃない。そこで何があったかなんです。忍び込んだ人間が次々と犠牲になるような何があったのか。
何もなかったです。
As soon as I said it, I regretted confirming my presence there, but I knew it didn't matter anymore.
本当に何もなかったんですか？だって現にこうして中に入った人たちが次々と犠牲になってるんですよ。
You can't really hide it now, Keiichi.
しかも扉の鍵を付け替えた村長やリカさんまで犠牲に。それだけの事態を引き起こす何があの中にあったんです。
I was far too tired to keep quiet about this. Perhaps that was Oisan's goal all along. But again, it didn't matter anymore.
大昔に使った拷問道具がたくさんしまってありました。それを高野さんたちと見て回りました。
本当にそれだけ？
本当にそれだけです。
口封じをされるようなとんでもないものが隠してあったんじゃないですか？
I mean, even thinking about it, I don't remember there being anything terrible in there. Besides the torture devices. I I think what Oisan might be referring to might be the jumping or whatever that apparently could be heard outside. But that nobody inside could hear. Or at least like Shion and I, like when we were in there, she mentioned something along those lines, but Keiichi couldn't hear anything. So I'm assuming that's what Oisan is referring to. Maybe there was like a secret chamber or something that we missed within the antechamber. And or past the antechamber, I should say. And something else happened. Yeah, like all there were torture devices and then the statue of Oyashiro-sama, and that's it. Like nothing else. Like even trying to remember, there was also just the cages, above like the torture devices, and then Keiichi kind of hallucinating that there might be a person in there, but that's about it.
例えば覚醒剤の山とか。
Ah. Oh, of course, the psychoactive drugs. How could we forget?
消しの秘密工場があったとか。あるいはソ連か中国あたりの拳銃が山ほど積まれていたと。
Soviet or Chinese handguns.
不審な木箱やコンテナが山積みされてませんでしたか？
Nah, bro, it was literally just like a torture chamber. There was nothing. As exaggerated as what Oishi-san was hoping for, but I felt like in a way there were plenty of terrible things hidden in there. From the perspective of someone who viewed the storehouse as sacred, whether or not I thought I had seen something or some crazy things didn't matter in the slightest. The four of us broke the taboo. Punish us. That should have been what happened.
あの西宮殿に何か秘密があるんじゃないかと思って捜査令状を請求したんですがね。もう空前絶後の妨害工作がありまして、信仰の対象に対する侮辱であり、憲法で定めた信仰の自由をなんたらかんたら。いやもう。だから実際に入ったあなたに聞くほかはなかったんですよ。
本当に古い錆びて埃をかぶった拷問道具しかなかったです。他に目立つものなんて何もなかったです。
では富武さんたちが殺されたのは禁忌を破ったからという制裁だけなんですかね。
I didn't have an answer for the only part.
もういちいち隠しませんけどね。あなただけが今日まで被害を免れてるんです。
We're the only ones?
あなた以外は全員が消えたのに、あなただけが無事なんです。あなたが無事で、あなた以外が被害に遭う。どんな違いがあったのか。それが知りたいんです。
There was something wrong with what Oishi-san was saying. You alone. You alone. Huh?
ちょっと待ってください。あなただけがってどういう意味ですか？
ですからあなただけが最後の生き残りなんじゃないですか。西宮殿に忍び込んだコソ泥4人組の。
The only one left alive. Hold on. Shion was still...
あの晩に富武二郎さんと高野美代さんが死に、翌日園崎紫音さんが失踪しました。あなただけが無事に今日までを過ごしてるんです。なぜあなただけなのか。私はそれが知りたいと言ってるんです。
シオンが失踪したって？
Like it finally hit him.
そんなバカな！
I unintentionally raised my voice, but I didn't care about that. Tomitake-san died, Takano-san died, and Shion disappeared? When did she disappear? What is this guy talking about?
ありゃ？特にご存知だったとばかり。
そんなのは初めて聞いた。シオンが失踪した？ いつ？
遡ると綿流しの次の日に失踪していたことになります。
Wait, yeah, exactly. If I'm here and Shion's missing, then who was on the phone? No way it was Mion, like, just changing her voice a little bit. Oh my god. Huh. Going back a bit. Stop saying stuff I don't understand.
園崎しおんさんはその日の気分で親類の家を泊まり歩いたりしますので、所在不明が当たり前なんですよ。学校も気分一つでよく休みますしね。先生も困り果ててました。
Wasn't she homeschooled?
そんなことは聞いてない。シオンはいつ失踪したかって聞いてるんだ。
ですから綿流しの次の日です。
So in game this would be about 2 days ago, I think. 3 days ago, I believe. The fluids in my body all reversed direction. I lost my sense of balance and everything I could see started to warp and twist out of shape. I simply couldn't endure it. And just because we haven't seen it, here's the inverted internal car scene number 1. Hang on. Shion had already disappeared? Then... That night, that phone call. Who was it? Give me a second. She called me every night. She encouraged me. We vowed that we would do our best to live on and not be erased. Yes, that should have been a phone call with Shion. Should have been a phone call with Shion. Should have been a phone call with Shion.
学校は平気で休むし、それを自宅に知らせても取り合ってもらえないから、学校もいちいち電話しない。そんなこんなで、彼女が失踪したことに気づくのに、だいぶ時間がかかったんですよ。
I felt a stabbing pain like needles were being pushed into every pore of my body. It started on my back and began spreading throughout the rest of me. When it had completely covered the surface of my skin, it began to worm its way inside my stomach as well.
ほら、覚えてませんか？綿流しの次の日に、私たち図書館でお会いしたでしょう。あの時、シオンさんもいましたよね。あれが最後の目撃なんです。あの後、彼女の所在は確認されてないんです。
そんなバカな。そんなバカな。
That day, Oisan had only caught me, and Shion bounded away, lying that she needed to go to work. Didn't she call me that night?
エンジェルモートっていうファミレスのバイトですよね。あの日から無断欠勤です。今日に至るまで全てを無断欠勤してるんです。お店の人も連絡を取ろうにも取れず困りきってましたよ。
そんなバカな。そんなバカな。
状況証拠だけですがね。図書館でお別れしてからバイト先に向かうまで、この間に失踪したと考えるのが妥当でしょうね。
Right after Shion ran away without me.
ご存知なかったみたいですね。なら、先に話せばもっと話が早かったかな。もう、これでご理解いただけたでしょう。あとは あなただけなんです。あなただけが西宮殿に忍び込んだ4人の生き残りなんです。
It couldn't be. It just couldn't be.
次に何か起こるとすれば、それはあなたなんです。前原さん、どうかご理解を。
Also, thanks, Billy, for the resub. You really don't need to. Again, if you wanna watch ad free, you can just watch on Kick as well. Like, since I am streaming this there too. Gotcha. Well, either way, I still appreciate it. You don't have to, but it means a lot. It can't be. It can't be. It can't be. Shion had already disappeared? That couldn't be. It couldn't be. I talked to her the day before yesterday. I talked to her last night. She was gonna call me again today. That was Shion on the phone. Shion on the phone. It was Shion. From Shion.
シオンさんはとっくに失踪してるんです。
Yeah, I was about to get to it. But yeah, my stream times are in the description or on Twitter. But they're there.
次はあなたなんですよ。
Then, who was on the phone those past nights? Who was on the phone those past nights? Who was on the phone those past nights?
そんな、わかんない。
Holy fuck, what a delivery. I lay down on the couch and stayed there dazed for a while. My mind was completely blank. I couldn't think about anything for more than a few seconds. There was a note in my house saying that Mom and Dad would be home late and that I should have some ramen or something for dinner. What kind of ramen, Keiichi? Pork and ginger, right? I could make it whenever I got hungry, but I had no appetite, so I just stared blankly at the ceiling without eating anything. The hands of the clock were already pointing at 10. Would I get another phone call like that today? Yeah, the voice actors for this specific chapter have been really good. I mean, in chapter 1 they were good as well, but here they kind of like amped it up. Even though Shion had already disappeared, would she still call me? Where were they calling from, and who were they? I'm trying to remember when the fuck caller ID was invented. Because this would help out a lot. Actually, let me find out. When was this invented? It was created in the 70s. And it was implemented commercially in 88. So 5 years after this, and who knows when Japan would get it. So maybe later. So meaning that by this point in time, caller ID did not exist. And in case you don't know what caller ID is, it's when it would show, it's whenever your phone, your landline, would show what phone number was calling you. Before, your phone would just ring. And again, I have to explain this because there are people that don't know what landlines are. But a landline, back in the day, was a phone line that you would have connected to your home, right? It's a phone that was just to receive phone calls from telemarketers, from anyone, really. And back then, caller ID did not exist. Now, if you get a phone call, if it's from a friend of yours that you have as a contact on your cell phone, it'll show their name, right? And if you don't have their phone number added as a contact, it'll show the number, right? Or if it's a 1-800 number, you'll see that. Or if it's a 1-900 number, or a whatever type number, you'll see the number on your phone. Back then, this wasn't the case. So back then, you would get a phone call, you would answer, and it'd be like, oh hey, it's so and so, right? So with Keiichi, or with anybody in this, as you have heard throughout the playthrough, anytime they answer the phone, like Keiichi will be like, yes, this is the Mayabara residence, right? Or whenever someone calls us, they don't specifically say who they are by name, by first name. So anytime that they would call Keiichi's house, they'll just say, oh, it's Sonozaki. So whether it was Shion or Mion, her mom wouldn't really know, right? Or her dad, whoever answered the phone, wouldn't really know. And they would just tell Keiichi, like, hey, Sonozaki's calling. Or a Sonozaki is calling. Oh, I forgot to read it. Would she still call me? Where were they calling from and who were they? I think I read that. Anyway, the more I thought about it, the more I started to tremble. I even thought about just disconnecting the phone line. If I'd been thinking a little less logically, I really would have done it too. Hold on, Keiichi. Oi-san admitted it himself, didn't he? That Shion went missing a lot? Couldn't she have just gone to relatives that Oi-san didn't know about and have been there ever since? Shion and I were both being targeted by somebody, so wouldn't it be strange to think that she went somewhere she usually didn't in order to hide. That must have been why Oi-san couldn't locate her, and why he labeled her a disappearance. Yeah, that had to be it. Shion hadn't disappeared at all. Then my right hand moved of its own volition and slapped me on the cheek. Its cold sting let me calm down a little.
都合よく考えすぎるなよ、前原圭一。
Now, one thing that I don't remember off the top of my head, because again, I play this game like twice a week, so it's been a little while since we did like the earlier chapters. I don't think Shion gave us her number. I think Shion got her number from somewhere. So, or got our number from somewhere. So it's safe to assume that we haven't been speaking to Shion at all on the phone, ever. I don't think she ever mentioned something like, I'll call you, off the top of my head. And if she did, then that would make sense. The other thing is, or the other theory would be, we never called Shion. It was always a Sonozaki calling us, right? Like that day that we had the argument with Shion. Keiichi was waiting the entire time for her to call us back. He was like, I could call her, but that would be rude or something, or maybe she's still mad. I'm gonna wait. So, I don't think he knew her phone number. Or I think he even mentioned it at one point, and I think I said just press like the redial button, right, to call her back. Assuming phones in this day and age had it. I'm pretty sure they had a redial option in the 80s. But they might have not because caller ID did not exist yet. I'm not sure. Were we talking to me on the whole time in Onikakushi? I can't think of any Shion moments off the top of my head, if I'm honest. And then the weird part is that they did mention they would, what's it called? They would, what's the fucking word? That they would play pranks all the time by swapping places. But I can't think of any specific moments in Onikakushi where Mion and Shion would have probably swapped places. Because most of the time when we would play through, or when we were going through Onikakushi, anytime we would hang out with with Mion, it would be like during club activities or walking home, except for like the festival in the Watanagashi. And I think that's about it. Anyway, I knew I didn't want to admit she had disappeared. Admitting it would mean that something terrifying was definitely happening. Well, because back then she wasn't introduced yet. For all I know, she wasn't a twinkle in the eye of the author. Yeah, they're just really good at switching. It's not Shion who went missing, it was actually Mion. But at least this entire time, whenever we have them physically before us, I've been able to tell who's who. But as for like just going off of the voices, well, obviously since they're twins, it's possible that they could do like different types of voices, right? Like because Mion is more laid back, while Shion is more ladylike, quote unquote, right? So her voice is more calm and demure and nice, and Shion is more, and Mion is just like, you know, a rambunctious like tomboy. Anyway, I just needed to figure out whether Shion was the one on the phone or not. Would I ask her if she was actually Shion? That seemed like an incredibly absurd thing to do.
逃げるな、ケイチ。
Just bring up a memory. Just bring up like one of the times. Just ask her when you two had your first kiss, or something like that. And she would need to remember. And if she doesn't, then you know it's Mion. If the person on the other end still believed that I thought she was Shion, then that gave me a tiny advantage. Casually, completely casually, I would listen to what she had to say and fend her off. I would tear the skin off that monster. It would definitely be really scary for me. However, as the last survivor of the people who went into the storehouse that night, this was my duty to perform. The other thing to consider, by the way, is that maybe Oi-san is lying to us. And he just said, oh, by the way, Mion went missing, I thought you knew. Or Shion went missing, I thought you knew. To kind of get us to confess or say something. Since Oi-san has been pretty slimy this whole chapter. So that's also something to maybe consider. For all we know, Shion is still alive. But who knows? Still, then who would call me and pretend to be Shion? I may have only heard her over the phone, but her voice shouldn't be that easy to replicate. That was definitely Shion's voice. It sounded just like her. Now think, Keiji. Use 100% of your brain. Who could possibly sound just like Shion? It could have only been Shion. No, think harder, Keiji. There was someone though, wasn't there? Someone who sounded just like Shion? Ah, there we go. Mion. Mion. Who else could have done this? At this point, seriously, like after all this time, all those little things that didn't quite make sense about Mion until now overwhelmed my mind. Like being questioned about sneaking into the ritual storehouse, and how she shook the ladder while spouting curses. Who else? Who else could have? Why though? Why would Mion... I thought back to the things about the Sonozaki family that I had heard from Oi-san and Shion. Mion was always entangled in the incidents, in a position where she was omnipotent. Some of that information included things like, things that Shion had told me after she disappeared. I madly scratched at my head. Courage. Give me courage. Just a little bit of courage to pick up the phone. I know it will ring tonight. It would be so easy to run away. That though, would be the same as making it easy for them to erase me. I cannot run. I must stand up and face it. After all, the next sacrifice would definitely be me. I was sure Shion would use her tricky words to try to trap me. Be careful. Be careful. Yeah, Oishi-san also said disappeared, right? He didn't specifically say that she's dead or anything. But he did imply her death, at least, by saying we're the only survivor. If he would have said something like you're the only one left accounted for, or you're the only one that's still around, or you're the only one that hasn't gone missing, that would be a little different. I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm scared. I don't want to do this. 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 Yeah, imagine they're fucking triplets. Oh. At that point, it rang. The phone rang, and I didn't know where the call was coming from. Caller ID would not be invented for another 5 years, and it wouldn't come to Japan until 1989. Shion had disappeared. Disappeared a long time ago. Disappeared the night after the Watanagashi. Yet, until today, she had been calling me like nothing happened. Now again, tonight. The people that had disappeared, their corpses simply haven't been found. I really didn't think they were alive. So if it really was Shion on the other end, then didn't that mean she was calling me from another world? Of course that couldn't be. A living being was calling me, pretending to be Shion. Shion was long gone, and yet, as though she were alive and well, the phone continued its incessant ringing. I didn't want to pick it up if I didn't have to. I had just concluded though, that not doing so wouldn't solve anything. Then, what would I do after I answered it? Would I immediately declare she wasn't Shion and ask who she was? Alternatively, would I pretend I was still fooled and try to grab her by the tail?
それが一番安全かもしれないよな。
Right, the phone's been ringing for like 10 minutes. It's already been implied that whenever Eiichi gets into like thinking mode, time flies by. Like minutes fly by. Like Oishi-san blew through like an entire cigarette. Well, sorry, what I was most afraid of was what the person on the phone would do when she realized I knew she wasn't Shion. However, as long as I continued to let her think I was fooled, she wouldn't do anything extreme, right? If I just make sure to be careful, that should be the safest option. I've made up my mind. I'll answer the phone. He had to, he needed to have all of these thoughts go through his head rapid fire. Because the phone will ring, I think, like, about 9 or 10 times before it just stops and the call just ends. Once I do that, I'll talk to her as if nothing happened. That wasn't all I'd do this time, though. I'd scope her out. Who was she? What was she thinking? And what was she after? Why was she doing this? Was she really the one who killed Tomitaka-san and Takuro-san? What happened to the mayor? What happened to Rika and Satoko? I reached out for the receiver, my arm trembling. There were too many things I wanted to know. Too many things I wanted to ask, and I was scared. Oh yeah, but WhatsApp's different. I'm talking about like a phone, like a landline. Landlines do not ring this long. And if they do, the person is really, really, really persistent. Usually they give up. You know, if you call someone, you let it ring like 3 times, usually, and that's when you pick up. Or that's when the other person picks up. And then usually, you let it ring for a little bit longer, in case they, in case they might be in a different room and they're running down to pick up the phone. And then, at like the 7th or 8th ring, by that point, you're already kind of pushing it. And if by the 9th or 10th ring they haven't answered the phone, they're ignoring you, so you kind of just hang up. I should start by picking up the phone. Pick it up, Keiichi. Pick it up, Keiichi.
もしもし。
Oh. How relieved I would have been if it hadn't been a call from Shion. But...
ケイちゃんですか？私です。シオンです。
My momentary, convenient, and above all, fleeting prediction was ripped into 1,000 pieces. I couldn't help shaking at this point. Get ready for this.
電話、なかなか出なかったんで、お留守かと思って切ろうとしてたんですよ。
The phone rings for like 100 times. I thought you weren't gonna answer.
ごめん。ちょっとお風呂に入っててさ。
それでも、ご家族の方が電話を取りませんか？
What kind of question is this? Like, I get it, right? The person on the other line is trying to scope us out. And they're trying to do this formally, right? Like the way the Japanese would reach conclusions, right? It's like, well, why didn't your family answer the phone? Are you alone right now? Right? Anyway.
そして、ケイちゃんの家、今ご両親はお留守なんですか？
I failed immediately. I let her in on a fatal piece of information that I was currently the only one at my house.
いや、別に、留守ってわけじゃ。そんなことより、聞いたか？
Right. If he would have had these thoughts like rapid fire, it would have had to be within like 5 rings. Like 3 to 5 rings.
リカちゃんとサトコの件。
いえ、結局、あの後どうなったんですか？見つかったんですか？
Have you heard about Rika and Satoko? No. Were they found?
ああ。
We never told her, right? Oh, right. No, we told her that we were gonna go check up on Rika. Never mind.
見つからなかった。
ケイちゃん、どうか気を落とさないで。
If Oishi-san hadn't let me know, then I might have allowed myself to shed a tear or two at Shion's considerate words. Instead, now that it had come to this, I couldn't take her words at face value. This person on the other end of the receiver, the more perfect as Shion they were, the more my blood curdled and feared.
リカちゃんとサトコは、さらわれたんだよな。
はい。それは間違いないでしょうね。
Just how cruel and grave a meaning did those words hold? Their weight astonished me, and then a moment later I was overcome with numbness and felt like I would pass out. I had asked if Rika-chan and Satoko had been kidnapped. Shion, in turn, answered that there wasn't much doubt. That cruel meaning behind her words.
リカちゃんとサトコは、いや、ごめん。村長さんは、さらわれて、どうなったと思う？まだ、生きてるんだろうか？
What happened to Rika and Satoko after they were kidnapped? That's what I wanted to ask, but I frantically caught myself. What if she had given that question a terrifying response in such a way to sound like it had nothing to do with her? I was scared of that, so I immediately brought up the mayor. That said, however,
殺されちゃったんだと思います。
however much I talked about the mayor,
おいおい、そんなにあっさり。
人間をさらって、その状態を維持するのってとても大変なことだと思います。人質にするんでもない限り、ヨンが済んだら殺しちゃうのが一番合理的じゃないかと。
The world started to bend so much I almost lost my balance. The scenery in my eyes whirled around and around like the hands of a clock, and tried to swallow me whole from below. I frantically put a hand on the wall to support myself. A moment later, a severe nausea welled up within me. How was she saying such things so lightly?
殺しちゃうって、そんなにあっさり。人の命を何だと思ってやがるんだ。
恐ろしいことだとは思いますが、多分そうではないかと。
Well, the song is new. Here, let's let it play for a little bit. So, at first, it sounded like tense, like a tense cello piece. And now it just sounds like Final Fantasy music. I was like, oh, this is really good. And then I was immediately disappointed. Because now all I picture is like, I don't know, a fight with like, what's one of the bosses? Like Kafka or some shit. Anyway. If the mayor was killed, did that mean... Sorry, I'm like, my immersion has been broken. This music is too fucking weird for this scene. It started off so good, and now all I can picture is like health bars and the sounds of like menus being like opened and closed in an RPG. If the mayor was killed, then did that mean the same had happened to Rika-chan and Satoko? No, that couldn't. They weren't some random old man. It was Rika. It was Satoko. They couldn't kill them so readily. They couldn't have killed them. You should probably assume they're dead too. She used her limit break on him. Those were the words I wanted to hear the least, and I fought them back with a scream of my own. Even though it wouldn't change anything, still, I still couldn't help but scream. This time, the tears flowed. I'd been confronted with the most horrific outcome that I've been trying to avoid considering ever since last night, and I cried. There was no longer any doubt that it was my fault. I killed them. I killed Rika and Satoko. I succumbed to the weakness of my own heart and confessed everything to Rika. That's why they were killed. That meant I killed them. When Rika-chan looked at me with those innocent eyes, if only I hadn't given in. Even my voice gave out, and yet, still, I cried. And cried. It's Higurashi now, when he cries. Rika and Satoko, they've been killed. We couldn't even find the remains. I would never be allowed to even apologize to their faces. If that was to be my punishment, then how brutal a punishment it was. I think Shion tried to comfort me, but I didn't hear any of it. Shion was shouting, imploring me with a voice that sounded like tears were in her eyes. However, I was coming to hate the sound of that voice more and more. This Shion killed them. I had no doubts that this person killed them. Now, actually, I'll wait a bit before mentioning this. Why? Why?
どうしてだよ。どうして人をさらったり殺したりするんだよ。たたりだかなんだか知らないが、人の命ってのはそんなに安いのかよ。あっさり消したり殺したり。
ええ、全くです。悪魔ですよね。
I felt like crushing the receiver in my hand. Okay. One thing that I also didn't think of. If Mion and Shion are twins, and they've been known to swap places a lot, what if we are talking to Shion right now? What if Shion somehow managed to get Mion captured, and Mion is who's missing? We do know that Shion is like the black sheep of the family to an extent, and we know that Mion is the next one in line to be the head of the household. We know that Mion and Shion don't really get along, and we can see why Mion would want Shion out of the way. I mean, Mion was falling for Keiichi, and then Shion stole him away because he thought that Shion was Mion. But what if right now we are speaking to Shion, and it just so happens that Mion is gone? Now, we don't know how to word it. At least from the events of Chapter 1, we know that Mion cares about Rika and Satoko, right? She doesn't view Rika and Satoko in a negative light. And it could be that Shion might see them as cursed. Remember, it was Rika who was doing like the ritual. It was us who went, we're the ones that went into the like storehouse. What if Rika said something or learned something like the day after the Watanagashi, and then Shion decided to kind of like not curse her, but swap places with Mion. I assume maybe that's what happened. That could also just be like a possibility. So we'll see, we'll see where this is going. But that's just something that hit me like right now, because we could be talking to her for all we know, but we also might not be. How long did this person plan on acting like it was someone else's problem? There was magma in the pit of my stomach, and it felt like it was going to erupt at any moment.
なあ、シオン、教えてくれ。どうしてこのひなみ沢では、綿流しの夜に人が死ななければならないことになってしまったんだ。
それは私が知りたいです。
もうダム計画との戦いは終わったんだぞ。なのに、どうしてまだたたり足りないんだ。
The difficulty is extreme.
どうしてだよ。どうして。理由があるなら言ってみろよ。
I was incoherent at this point. My emotions had broken through the dam inside of me, rushing forth, and I couldn't stop them. These were not simple questions. This was an interrogation. Shion herself hadn't realized it yet. It was just too funny. It was so funny that I couldn't stop
ケイ
crying.
さんの気持ち、私もよくわかります。ダム闘争はとっくの昔に終わったんです。なのに毎年、お社様のたたりという名の殺人と失踪が繰り返されている。なぜ？どうしてなんですか？ 全然関係ない人もいた。たたられるのに不相応な人だっていたのに、どうして
それを俺が聞いてるんだ。
Sorry, I know the voice actor is trying really hard. But with this music in the background, all I can think of is like when Keiichi lost in chapter 1 after winning in that game of a Millionaire, I think it was. And then he's like, when he was disappointed, like that's the same tone that this line delivery had.
それを私だって知りたいんですよ。
Both of our ragged breaths, or yeah, both of our ragged breaths could be heard over the
いい
phone.
ですか。お社様のたたりなんて非現実的なものは初めから存在しません。ケイちゃんの言う通り、村の何者かがお社様のたたりというもっともらしい大義名分を利用して奴らは狡猾でした。たたりを都合よく利用して村の旧敵を毎年2人ずつ消し去るシステムを構築していったんです。そしてこのシステムで今年は高野さんたちが殺された。
じゃあ2人で十分じゃねえかよ。どうして村長やリカちゃんやサトコまで殺されなくちゃならないんだよ。それに俺は過去のことは今さらどうでもいいんだ。リカちゃんとサトコがなぜ殺されなくちゃならなかったのか、その一点にしか興味はないんだ。どうしてなんだ。サトコには打ち上げですらないんだぞ。どうしてサトコまで、どうしてなんだ。
Just like the fucking record scratched. A silence fell between us. Shion didn't answer for a while.
ケイちゃん、もういじめないでください。
A sob. Was Shion crying?
私だって何が何だかわからないんです。最後殿に忍び込んだあの晩から全てが変わってしまった。
It was the same for me. As I listened to Shion's bitter weeping, I could feel my agitation subsiding.
あの晩、高野さんたちが死んだと聞き、耳を疑いました。
This is also a new track.
そしてすぐに気づいたんです。今度は自分が狙われる立場になったんだって。忍び込んだのは私たち4人。私とケイちゃんだけが都合よく許してもらえるわけがない。そう思った時、それがどれだけ心細くて恐ろしいことだったか、ケイちゃんにはわかりますよね。
There was nothing fake about her words. She even understood how I felt.
だから私、君吉のおじいちゃんに打ち明けたんです。私はみんなが入ってはいけないという最後殿に面白半分な気持ちで踏み入ってしまいました。いけないことだとは分かっていましたが、本当に面白半分な気持ち、ちょっとした探検気分のつもりだったんです。一緒に入った高野さんたちはその後すぐに殺されてしまいました。それもあんなむごい最後。あの日からいつ私も襲われるのではないかと怯えています。君吉のおじいちゃんしか助けてくれる人がいません。だからおじいちゃん、助けてって。君吉のおじいちゃん、怒らなかった。そしてにっこり笑って、しおんちゃんがちゃんと反省してるなら鬼隠しになんかなるものかって。
Is she repeating herself so much?
本当に笑いながら任せなさいって。
Shion cried bitterly, recalling the beloved mayor's death. It was such a sad voice that none who heard it could prevent it from twisting their hearts. Again, did I let my emotions take over and go off at her? Shion was in the same situation as me. She should have been my one and only friend. Not saying that word. Not especially when the track called Fascism was just playing, apparently. My heart pounded. My other self, deep within my mind, whispered to me, "Don't forget, Keiichi. Don't forget about the mayor. On the morning after the Watanagashi, Keiichi's other self, his dark passenger. He was told of Takano-san and Tomitake-san's deaths over the phone and committed to a meeting that evening. He went to a hospital appointment. He didn't tell his family. He'd only made it back just in time for the meeting. He went straight to the assembly hall. That's what Oi-san said."
いつ村長に打ち明けたんだよ。ごめんな、シオン。悲しい気持ちのところに追い打ちをかけるようで。シオンは打ち明けたんだよな。君吉のおじいちゃん、つまり村長に。
はい。
いつ打ち明けたんだよ。
I'd begun to get scared of saying it aloud after hearing her sad voice. I wasn't saying it was contradictory though. Besides, if there was a contradiction, then I wanted Shion to explain it to me.
村長さんは重い痔を患ってて、病院にかかっていたという話は知ってるか？
ケイちゃん、それが何か。
答えてくれ。知らないなら知らないと答えればいい。
There was a momentary silence. Then, after stammering a few times, she
痔
replied,
だったのは知ってます。座る時とか辛そうでしたから。
病院に通ってたんだ。どこの病院かは知ってるよな。
ごめんなさい。それはちょっと知りませんけど。でも、ケイちゃん、それが一体何の。
Shion didn't know what hospital the mayor went to. That meant it was impossible for her to have gone all the way to the hospital to confess everything. Since she didn't know his destination, then she obviously couldn't have seen him on the train either. If there was any other chance for her to contact him, it would have been after he came to Hinamizawa. The train, however, had been delayed, and he only got back right before the meeting was about to start. He didn't have time. There wouldn't have been enough time for him to listen to Shion spill the beans. What a shitty, word choice for this specific, this tense moment. Instead of being like, there wouldn't have been enough time for him to listen to Shion confess what happened or explain what happened. He goes with spill the beans, huh?
単刀直入に聞きたいんだ。シオンはいつ村長に打ち明けたんだ？どこで？いつ？大雑把でいいから教えてほしいんだ。
ケイちゃん、なんでそんなことを。
Her sob pierced into my ears. I was taken by the illusion that I was bullying her. Even so, I'll say it. If I'm wrong, then please correct me. Please prove to me that you're the real Shion.
ありえないんだよ。村長が失踪した日、朝から消えるまで、シオンには接触できる機会はありえないんだ。
そんな。
村長は朝一で誰にも内緒の大学病院へ一人で診察に出かけた。シオンは今この病院を知らないと言った。だから帰ってくるまで村長と接触することはできないはずだ。そうだろう。帰りの電車が事故で遅れたので自宅に帰ってきたのは会合の始まる直前だった。つまり 会合が始まるまでの時間にも打ち明ける時間的余裕はないんだ。
Heard Shion repeating her weak sobs. That sort of feminine voice automatically ripped into my heart. It was so painful for me to say it.
シオンも一緒に会合に出たのか？そして会合の席上で打ち明けたのか？ここで打ち明けなきゃもう時間がないもんな。村長は帰宅途中で失踪するんだから。
Shion went to the meeting, didn't she? Did she? Or didn't she? The question was so simple to answer, but she didn't give me an immediate response.
実は会合に
あの日、シオンが行くと言ったバイトすら、君は欠勤してるんだ。もっと端的に言おう。君は、俺と一緒に行った図書館以降、誰にも目撃されていない。
ケイちゃん、
園崎シオンは、綿流しの翌日に、失踪したんだ。
The other N fell silent as the grave. It was so quiet that it was like the phone cord had been cut. I couldn't sense anyone there.
大石さんは、君がすでに失踪していると言っているんだ。でも、シオンはこうして毎晩、俺に電話をかけてきてくれただろ？
Shion's sobs were torturing me. Still, I'm pretty sure I haven't said anything wrong.
頼む、シオン。俺が言ったことが間違ってるなら、そうだと言ってくれ。シオン、頼むから。
She's not crying anymore. She's laughing now.
シオン、お前は村長に会ってなんかないんだ。もし会ったとしたなら。
If Shion ever did have the chance to meet with the mayor on that day, then that meant
村長が会合を終えた後、すなわち失踪する直前、もしくは失踪してからしかありえないんだ。
I knew it. Now that's fucking creepy. Yeah, Shmion's laugh is pretty crazy. Beep, beep went the dial tone. I stood there dazed for a while until I realized she had hung up on me. Oh, and they're just gonna end it like this. Oh no, there's mahjong in this? Oh god. Alright, well, let's save. And let's look at the tips. So, yeah, we're gonna have a kaiji arc now. First, blackjack. Well, first we just need like paper, rock, scissors, and then, you know, like walking through gutters, and then playing what is it? Fuck that game with the king and slave. And then into, like, you know, Chinchirorin, and then into pachinko, and then into like blackjack, and then into mahjong. Anyway, from the scrapbook 11. The oh my god. Now I'm sounding like the twins. The problem with twins. Oh my fucking god. This is not limited to just Hinamizawa, but in Onigafuchi village especially, the three families detested giving birth to twins as successors. The long-term dictatorship built on the precarious balance of the three families must have feared collapsing under the weight of internal strife from things like family quarrels. According to the literature, if twins were born, then they had to be culled. With that, the very fact that both the Sonozaki family successors Mion Sonosuke and her twin Shion are alive is in itself deeply interesting. Perhaps the current leader Oryu is sympathetic. Of course, the twins were not cared for equally, and as their heir, Mion received special treatment. Oh, Bat, thanks so much for stopping by. I really appreciate it, on the kick side at least. From what I've heard, despite the two of them looking exactly the same on the outside, the talent lies solely within Mion. My own observations of the two of them don't leave me with that impression. Tradition dictates that the leader of the Sonosuke family is said to inherit a demon, and they tattoo a magnificent one onto his or her back. In accordance with the tradition, there is an extremely high possibility that Mion has such a tattoo on her back. From what I've heard, there's apparently a magnificent demon tattooed on Oryu's back as well. Then, I wonder what sort of tattoo belongs to the heir Mion. I really want to see her back. Right, because remember that technically the Sonosuke family, including Mion and Shion, are connected to the Yakuza. And by that I mean they literally are, you know, members of the Yakuza. I still think this was written by Takano. I'm pretty sure. I don't think this is written by Keiichi or anyone else. I'm pretty sure I think it's implied to be Takano, because they mentioned something along the lines of like, I want to see inside the storeroom. I really need to see inside the storeroom, something like that. And I mean, so far we know that Takano's the only one that really wants to look in there. Unless it's some third character that isn't going to be, or another character, I mean, that hasn't been introduced yet, and they're not going to be introduced until part 3. Alright. So, at the Suzu Mahjong Parlor. Now, remember, Mahjong Parlors are probably full of, like, Yakuza-related activities, so that's probably why we're seeing this. And Bat, thanks so much for the follow. I almost forgot about that. Reserved for the day, Suzu Mahjong Parlor.
あんりゃ、クラちゃん。あんたが一番遅いよ。若い人はみんな揃ってる。
じゃあお母さん、すみませんね。
Kuda. Oh wait, that wasn't Kuda. That was Oishi. Yeah. Because I was like, why is Kuda-chan laughing just like Oishi-san? Oishi handed a convenience store bag with a carton of cigarettes in it to the old lady who owned the Mahjong Parlor. She shrewdly made herself scarce. Yeah, Kurado. She was used to this by now.
おいさん、お疲れ様っす。
Right, and I don't think we've seen this one. We have definitely not seen this at all before. This is a very interesting image. So we have mahjong tables, sofas, what appear to be lockers in the back, a place for keys, like a keyring holder, or a keyring holding board, or maybe just a board of some kind. And then to the top right, or in the, in the center, there's like a small shrine. And then lining the wall are a bunch of like just pictures, which I assume might be related to either past owners or important patrons or anything like that. So that's something to consider. All right, let's quickly look at the other background though, the console background. This is probably just going to be, yeah, there it is. Well, here it's a lot more clear. So you've got the lockers, you've got a tobacco bending machine, so just a sig machine, and what else? That's about it, like a little bar, I guess, and then patrons in the back.
なんだ、みんな真面目に待ってたんですか？さんまでもやってりゃよかったのに。
Everyone sitting at the mahjong tables in the small parlor were Oishi-san subordinates, but there were no titles laid out anywhere.
皆さん、連日の不眠不休の捜査、本当にお疲れ様です。
うっす。
Energetic responses filled the parlor. Already, it had lost the atmosphere of a place of entertainment.
状況は芳しくありません。所長が園崎系議員の恫喝に屈したそうです。
Wait, Kuda-chan is Oishi's nickname? I thought it was, Oh, right. Yeah, I forgot about that. Never mind. I confused him for Kuma for a sec. Anyway.
近日中に高野殺しは岐阜県警に譲り、村長たちの失踪は行方不明扱いで生活課に委ねるようです。
Yeah, the other one's Kuma. That damn upstart chief. The veterans in the room cursed him.
請求した令状もすべて却下されました。課長からは園崎家界隈には近づくなとまで言われています。いやいや困ったもんです。ちなみに私には来週から警視庁への研修命令が出るそうです。その後は余った有給を伊豆で消化しろとまで言われています。いや、そういうのも悪くないですね。
He heard a few dry laughs. It wasn't anything to laugh about, but that was all they could do.
いつもそうですが、事件と車のキーの閉じ込めはよく似ています。開けるための鍵はいつもその中に閉じ込められているんです。車なら修理業者を呼んで扉をこじ開ける。事件なら、熊ちゃん、図面を。
Kuma flipped over to the whiteboard. On the back was a map of the Sonozaki premise made with magnets.
私もずーっとこの商売をやってます。勘には自信があるつもりですがね。今回ばかりは外れるかもしれませんよ。退職金が欲しい方は、私が10数える間に席を外してください。
Oishi-san began to count to 10, and everyone counted along with him. It was their famous 10 count resolution.
10! ああ、誰も出てかないよ。皆さん、ご家族はもっと大切にしてくださいよ。
Everybody laughed uproariously, cheering things up.
各自、手元の資料を確認。監視カメラの所在と資格を叩き込んでください。熊ちゃんは指揮者で待機。非常時は私に代わって指揮をお願いしますよ。小宮山君は突入 A 班、敦君は突入 B 班を指揮。監視班は1から8まで所定の位置で監視を。ボンチ君はタイムテーブルを厳守。署に怪しまれないようローテを管理してください。さて、待機中の班が一番大仕事ですよ。課長に私の所在を聞かれたら、とぼけてください。
8 was Hachi. By the way.
ゲストのエスコート役は私がやります。きっと会場へ連れて行きますので、皆さん気長に待っててください。
落ちるっすかね、前原圭一は。
They're all placing side bets on whether or not we're gonna crack.
私の見たところじ
That's
ゃ、
fucking funny.
明日、明後日にはいけそうですよ。もう、コロッとね。
So it looks like the police are ready to raid the Sonozaki mansion, or at least the main one, and they're gonna try to, you know, infiltrate it, or who knows what they're gonna do. But they're ready. They're like getting ready to raid it. Like, that's for sure. Right. He's just a dog in God's hot car. There's no AC. Oh man. All right. So it looks like we're gonna go ahead and call it here for tonight.